Once upon a time, there was a piece of paper named Charles. And Charles, the piece of paper, wanted more than anything to be drawn on. But all of the markers chose the other sheets of paper because Charles, the piece of paper, was recycled. And sometimes markers / children are jerks. That is just the way that markers are sometimes. So anyway, Charles, the piece of paper, was Yeah, Pop-Tart, sorry, I'm just sleepy. I can snap out of it and wake up if I need to. I just haven't had a reason to, so I've gone into stasis mode. Okay, we're fine. Charles, the piece of paper, things and stuff, yes, words. Hardcore parkour, yeah! So yes, Charles, the piece of paper, wanted to be drawn on very much, but none of the markers would draw on him because he was kind of old paper and a little yellow around the edges. And like from a superficial standpoint, nobody wanted it for their arts and crafts projects. But then along came a child named Susan. And Susan the child asked Charles to collaborate with her, and Charles was delighted because Charles had never been asked to collaborate on a project before. But then Susan the child brought out a pair of bright blue safety scissors and said, "This won't hurt a bit," and Charles knew that it was going to hurt more than a bit. So Charles went away from Susan the child screaming. Charles was a very sensible piece of paper. And Charles, the very sensible piece of paper, ran and hid under the dresser drawer, where nobody ever saw him again, except then Susan the child moved out of that house because people said it was haunted. It was haunted by a very lovely ghost named Elderberry. And Elderberry is not currently relevant to this story, but Elderberry has their own story that we will tell someday. So anyway, Charles laid there, hidden under a desk drawer for many, many, many years. And then a new family moved in. And in that family, there was another child called Albert. And Albert was moving around the furniture in his bedroom when he spotted Charles, the very old piece of paper at this point. Charles was covered in dust and rough around the edges and thought that nobody would ever use him for a project. He thought he would just lie there until one day he were thrown in the trash, or if he was lucky, recycled. But, words. And so, we're naming the kid Kevin now because I forgot his name. Kevin, the child, found Charles, and Charles thought that he would never ever be used, and he thought that he would just die sad and alone. Maybe recycled into new paper if he were lucky. But Kevin said to him, "Hi, you're really cool." And Kevin the child says to Charles, the piece of paper, "Would you like to become origami?" Because that was a thing that you could do to paper. And Charles, the piece of paper, nearly cried from joy, except that paper cannot cry. So instead, he just briefly contemplated his physical inadequacies, and then, he agreed to be made into origami. And then And then Charles was folded into a paper crane. And Charles the paper crane lived a very, very long, happy life, finally feeling useful and knowing that he was glad he had waited for the right person to do a project with him. Except then Kevin's little sister walked into the art room. And Kevin's little sister, Susie, liked to make paper snowflakes. And so Charles the paper crane watched, helpless, unable to even scream, as Susie the younger child cut his friends and family members into pieces. But that, So, Susie never learned the consequences of her actions because she did not know that her actions would have consequences, because she had not learned to speak paper yet. So Susie hung her snowflake paper corpses up from the windows because it was nearly Christmas. And Charles watched in horror. Charles watched and watched until one day, Kevin and Susie moved out of the house. And Charles was left a dusty yellow paper crane stuck on the mantle in perpetual stasis. A final family moved in. It was... Wait, hold on. Wait, did I name two children Susan and Susie respectively without realizing? Okay, well, anyway, Susan came back, and Susan was a teenager. And she found Charles sitting upon the mantelpiece, and she said to him, "I am sorry for my ethical misdoings to you in the past because I recognize you. I realized as soon as you screamed and ran away that it would have been wrong to cut you up with safety scissors because you are sentient and that would be painful and unethical. So instead, I would like to ask what you want to be, because it's your choice." And Charles said that what he wanted to be was just a simple sheet of paper upon which stories could be told, because Charles had heard so many stories and never quite gotten one of his own. So, Susan wrote a book upon Charles, or at least the first few words of it, first few paragraphs. And when Susan ran out of room on Charles, Susan moved on to other pieces of paper who had always wanted a purpose, always longed to belong, left lying in that old dusty house for hours and years. And Susan wrote a novel. And Susan the teenager published her novel after a long and hard life involving a couple mishaps with her ex-girlfriends and one surprisingly large cat. And, well, she won't even talk to you about the ice cream truck. But anyway, Susan grew up. And she grew up and she wrote that book. And on the dedication page of the book, she said, "For Charles, thank you for never giving up hope that we can all be something greater." And Charles, once just a small scrap of paper, now the first page of a best-selling novel, had finally felt at peace. The end. Sleep well, kids!